When my mom had the diagnosis and I was in high school, I went to a psychiatrist and I said, I'd like to talk about my mom being sick. And the psychiatrist said, no, we're not. And I will never, ever forget that. But it wasn't until recently that I was like, you know, right around that time was when I started to self harm.
Welcome to the Accessible Future podcast. I'm your host, Simon Jones. My guest today is Chrissy Sadowski. Chrissy works for the Young Caregivers Association. They're a Canadian organization who is dedicated to supporting young children and young adults who are in a caregiver role at home. She talks a lot about growing up as a young caregiver herself, even if she didn't realize she fit that label. She also lives with MS and has 4 children, including a teenage son with autism. And she has spent the last several years pushing for disability advocacy. There are 2 things that I want to flag before getting into this conversation. Chrissy describes what it looks like to be a 5-year-old caregiver. It's one of those things that make you realize how many kids are in that role. Secondly, she tells the story of her son Darius going missing last summer. She talks about how the first responders addressed the situation and then how it led her to advocate for better first response training. Now, here's my interview with Chrissy Sadowski. Well, Chrissy, thank you so much for joining the podcast here this morning. We're very glad to have you on board.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So I understand that you are at the YCA, which is known as the Young Caregivers Association. Tell us a little bit about what the YCA is.
Sure. So we support 5 to 25-year-olds who are in a caregiving role at home. So that could be because of a sibling, a parent, or a grandparent. And it could be anything from a chronic illness, intellectual or physical disability, mental health, addiction, socioeconomic status. But our kids, teens, and young adults are helping somebody at home and doing a lot more than their peers. So we provide programs and services to support them because being a young caregiver, we know in general that being a caregiver is hard.
Yeah.
Right? As an adult, being a caregiver is hard. So never mind adding in those like teen and youth experiences on top of that. So we support through different types of clinical and social rec programs. And we know that there are risks that come with being a young caregiver, such as social isolation and depression, anxiety, self harm, suicidal ideation, uh, all of these different things, right? And so imagine you had an organization to be able to say to you, hey, we see you. Here's how we can help support you so you can support your loved one. Because this is an area where we also know our healthcare system is failing so many families across Canada.
Yeah. You mentioned just now about the ages. Tell us again what are the ages, sort of parameters?
Yeah, so 5 to 25 is who we support. Many organizations go up to 30 to support young caregivers. I know what you're thinking, which is, wow, 5 years old seems really young. But, a 5-year-old often might have a role that's maybe they're not changing a trach tube or doing something really what we would consider significant in healthcare. But maybe it's, hey, read a book with your sibling who has autism so I can have a shower.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
suddenly, okay, they're a sibling, but they're also turning into that caregiver role.
Very interesting. And so tell us a little bit then about the programs that you would offer for these individuals within those age brackets.
Yeah, so a lot of the programs are social work programs that are giving these kids or teens an experience that maybe they're not going to get otherwise. So, swimming, bowling, uh, stuff like that, stuff in the community that maybe their families just can't do. This summer, our goal is to take our teens to Canada's Wonderland because we
Yeah.
know a lot of families can't because of their own physical disability, whoever they're caring for at home. Again, somebody in the family who maybe can't handle that sensory overload, no transportation, you name it, right? So So we provide these types of social rec programs, but we also provide life skill programs. So we'll do a lot of different cooking programs,
Mm-hmm.
um, which because a lot of our kids cook at home.
Yep.
And so different types of cooking programs, resume building, that type of like financial literacy, that type of thing where they may
Mm-hmm.
have more of a role in that than again their peers do. And then we have clinical. So we do provide counseling as well. Our clinical is always very, sometimes we have a small wait list, but we again, it's free, so we know that our programs, whether it's clinical or social rec, are tailored to young caregiver specific needs. With our young adults, sometimes we will provide some form of like support group type style, virtual. That's often what they
Yep.
want.
Yep.
But right now we have another organization that kind of began with us and now is branching off onto their own called the Young Caregiver Council of Canada.
Okay.
And they go up to 30. So often we'll send those higher teens or young adults to them.
Yeah. Okay.
Where they're providing, and I should say they're
Yeah.
providing a lot of policy advocacy and support within
Yeah.
their programs.
And then are you actually is this provided all in house, like at your clinic, or are you actually going to the individuals?
You know what? That's a great question because we actually do one-to-ones as well. So sometimes we'll just go pick up a kid and take them to like a Tim Hortons and
Okay.
give them a little bit of break from home,
Yep.
chat with them, again, that empowerment,
Yeah.
listen to them and kind of see what they need. I think there's two pieces here that are really important. And one is okay, you get a break from home, right? And or you can feel like a kid, like summer camp is that, right? Our goal of summer camp is to feel like a kid. But what happens within our programs are these peer-to-peer supports.
Hmm.
So you suddenly have somebody who's like, wait a second, you understand what it's like. Because you throw this exact same kid in their high school classroom and they say, oh, last night I didn't sleep at all because my brother had a meltdown all night. Versus you come here and say that, and suddenly people are like, oh, yeah, this is what happened in my house last night. So these peer-to-peer supports are created and this connection happens and it's so powerful and it happens naturally without us facilitating it, which I
Yeah.
would say is one of the coolest things that happens at our programs.
Yeah. That's very cool. So is there a Young Caregivers Day? I thought I saw something around May 28th.
Yep. So last year, we officially launched a Young Caregivers Day. And we did this because everybody has a day. Tacos have a day,
Hmm.
burritos have a day. I'm like, why can't Young Caregivers have a day?
Yeah.
So we named the fourth Thursday of May to be Young Caregivers Day. So this year it falls on May 28th.
Yep.
And we have a lot of really cool events happening that anybody can join actually throughout the world, which is super cool. So, number one, we have a screening of a show, like a mini documentary. It's called Like a Mountain Mindfulness for Young Caregivers. And what happened in this was a filmmaker took out Sam, who
Hmm.
was a young caregiver and still is to his both his parents and a world-renowned mindfulness expert, and they were, like, dropped somewhere in the Yukon and went on this, like, excursion exploring how it was growing up as a young caregiver, the feelings now. It's about 20 minutes long. You can join virtually from anywhere in the world to watch this. If you are closer to us in Niagara, Hamilton, in that area, even
Yeah.
Toronto, you can come to our live screening that's happening in downtown St. Catharines at the First Ontario Performing Arts Center. So that's really cool too. It's a free event,
Okay.
but again, it's supporting young caregivers and it's supporting um, acknowledging what they go through, but also celebrating the understanding that everybody, that young caregivers want the world to know anyway. The second event is a global conference. So on almost every single hour on the hour, we're going to be having a listening and sharing session.
Yeah.
And you can join any of these listening and sharing sessions. It's called Silent Strength, a tribute to siblings and young hearts who care. And you can go on any of these different, basically Zoom calls and join from Singapore, Japan, anywhere in Canada, some places in the UK, Brazil, all these really neat to hear kind of the young caregiver experience. And again, to celebrate what we know are the positives about young caregivers.
That sounds like an incredible event that you have coming up. So you said that's on May 28th?
Yes, you'll be seeing a lot of stuff kind of pop up online, but it'll be on our social media as well. So if you follow us at Young Caregivers Association, you'll see any kind of links to sign up for any of those events as well, virtually or in person.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we give a shout out for it. So this podcast is all about what an accessible future looks like. So, Chrissy, in your words, what does an accessible future look like to you?
I have multiple answers for this because I come from multiple places.
Okay.
I would say in terms of young caregivers, accessibility looks like understanding. So specifically in the school system,
Mhm.
whether that's within um like high school, post-secondary, but understanding what a caregiving role looks like. So right now we know in many schools they have a ban against cell phones, or the latest announcement where they're going to change attendance to be a part of your credit. That is not good for young caregivers, um, because a lot of young caregivers miss a lot of school because of whatever they're dealing with at home, whoever
Mhm.
they're helping at home, because there are a lack of supports, again, by the healthcare system. So if we don't have those supports in place, how can we then turn around and say you have to be at school every single day if your role is to make sure that somebody's safe? Right? And it's the same with cell phones. No kids across the board can have cell phones. Okay, well, what about those kids who need to check in on their family member?
Yeah.
And that's hard for people to understand, but
Mhm.
it's a reality.
Yeah.
So for me, an accessible future looks like those accommodations. In post-secondary, I've heard from a lot of people like understanding that, maybe you have to postpone an exam a few days. Even in high school, I've said this. My own son woke up the other day at 3 in the morning, and his room is under my oldest bedroom. And he was laughing and playing and kicking the wall. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I know my other son has a physics exam today. How fair is this? Like, it's
Mhm.
not fair, right? But wouldn't it be awesome if teachers could say, "Okay, you know what? I understand what happened in your house last night. We're gonna give you one more day." And I'm not saying my own child needed that or didn't, but some of our kids do,
Mm.
right? So I think accessibility looks like understanding and identifying to be able to give them the proper supports they need.
And so, what barriers stand in the way of us reaching that future as a society?
In my role at Young Caregivers Association, I do a lot of outreach.
Mhm.
So any conversation like this is so important. Who's going to listen to this? What if a healthcare professional listens to this, or an educator listens to this, and then they're able to say, hang on a second, we actually have some young caregivers at our school. Or how are we going to find out if there are young caregivers at our school? In the UK, it's mandated for people to for educators to know about young caregivers, which is a huge, huge piece. It's not mandated here. So I am trying to get in front of as many people as possible in Canada constantly to say, this is who a young caregiver is.
Yeah.
What do you have in place to help identify and then help support them?
I want to switch gears here a little bit. Looking back when you were a young caregiver yourself, at the time you didn't really have maybe the language for it. So, what happened later in life that made it sort of that aha moment or that it made it click for you?
So I've been with YCA for just over 3 years,
Mhm.
but my kids have been involved with YCA since 2014 when we adopted a child on the spectrum. In 2018, I was sitting at a strat plan brainstorm session with stakeholders for the YCA. And something was said, and I thought I was there as Darius's mom, right? And my kid's mom. And all of a sudden I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. What was just said? I said, oh my gosh, I was a young caregiver as well. So that's wild to me that even though I knew my own kids were young caregivers, I didn't identify as that until 2018. And then I realized, and now over the course of, I guess, 8 years, I've really been able to piece out hey, this is actually because of my caregiving role or the lack of supports. I'll tell you a quick story. So my mom has MS. That's
Mhm.
why I
Yep.
was a young caregiver. And there was a very long process for that diagnosis. So there was a lot of unknowns, a lot of secrets, my parents didn't know what to necessarily tell me.
Mhm.
But I knew things were going on, but nobody knew what. When my mom had the diagnosis and I was in high school, I went to a psychiatrist and I said, I'd like to talk about my mom being sick. And the psychiatrist said, no, we're not. And I will never, ever forget that. But it wasn't until recently that I was like, you know, right around that time was when I started to self harm.
Yeah.
And now I'm connecting all of that together, and there's no blame anywhere, right? Society didn't know. It wasn't a thing. We didn't highlight caregivers in general. That wasn't even a term that was used. And I will never blame my parents, but I look at all of those connections and I'm like, isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Imagine there was an organization like this that existed, right? To be able to
Yeah.
support me in that journey.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you needed that support, but you were continually getting redirected. What does that experience really tell us then about maybe how unprepared our support system really is?
Yeah, and I mean, I will start by saying I think things are different today. That was many years ago. We still see it, right?
Mhm.
You wouldn't believe how many people I present to who put their hand up after the presentation and say, "Oh my God, I was a young caregiver and I just realized right now."
Mhm.
Like we don't do a good job with helping to identify and then providing those supports. So I think our organization is really unique because in the clinical department, we specialize in therapy for young caregivers. So that's very different than me going somewhere else and saying, "Oh, I need help because I'm a caregiver." I'll tell you as an adult caregiver, often, I'm constantly looking for a therapist that I feel can work well with me. And I'll always check that caregiver box when you have to do those profiles.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people just have it written in their profile as maybe they did a quick 20-minute course on who a caregiver is, but unless you've been a caregiver, I don't know that you can provide support to people, and I'm not trying to be mean. I,
Mhm.
actually am unsure because I don't know that you get it. I don't know. I think there's something to lived experience and people, we see that on many tables now, right? That lived
Yeah.
experience is so important to be there. And we talk about this with accessibility and stuff as well. So, um, I think our job is to be as loud as possible and to make sure that people know that caregivers as young as 5 even exist.
Yeah. Were you then, Chrissy, at one point, were you diagnosed with MS yourself?
Yes. So, I would say we probably knew that I had MS since I was 15 because a
Mm.
doctor kinda made a comment to me like, "Oh, I think you're on the same path as your mother." Um, but the MRIs were not coming out, positive. And then 20 years ago, I finally got the results that said, "Yes, you officially have MS." For over 15 years, I would say, I was very good. And what I mean by that is my symptoms were hidden. You wouldn't have known I was doing I was running races and doing mini triathlons and lifting weights, and you wouldn't have known. And then about 4 years ago, something changed, and my right leg since has decided it's no longer on board with my body. So I use usually mobility aids now to get around, so canes or a rollator, and really have to assess where I'm going and things like where the washroom is,
Mhm.
and if there's stairs and who I'm with, and making sure I'm comfortable with people, to be able to get me from point A to point B if I need support, so.
So then at what point, Chrissy, did you start seeing yourself as a person with disability and not just a caregiver?
I guess, like, it started 4 years like, when I had to stop running,
Mhm.
or when I had to stop biking outside because my balance was off, like, I started seeing small things, but I would say there was a time period of acceptance that came with that and challenge to accept it. It's really hard to go from being super active and mobile
Mhm.
to saying, I have a disability now. Like, I am because I would say even though I was vocal about MS over the course of the past 15 years, I also wasn't vocal because I almost felt like a fraud. Like, my mom is bedridden and I'm like, "Oh, and I have MS." What do I have to talk about? I mean, I'm doing triathlons. I'm fine. But now I feel like because I have a disability, I now have a platform to
Yep.
be loud and
Yep.
to promote things like accessibility and those small changes we need, to be a better society, I guess.
So you mentioned just now that you use canes and a rollator. So how has that changed the way that people interact with you in public?
So, that's really funny because I think because I'm young and because I generally have a fairly fit body,
Mhm.
people automatically assume I have an athletic injury. So, when I haven't seen people in a long time, people who I know will be like, "Oh my god, what did you do?" And, I did nothing, I have MS. But what's really funny is how strangers react to me having these devices, like, almost like my devices make other people uncomfortable. I was at an event with my husband, and I had my rollator, and a woman out of nowhere beelined up to me, and she said, "Why do you have that?" And I was like, "I I have MS." And she's like, "Oh." I'm so sorry. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're doing here. I just met you 3 seconds ago and you're crying because I have MS. I'm not crying because I have MS. Like, it was the wildest experience. And I don't know, because I thought about this a lot after. What would she have wanted me to say that wouldn't have been such a bizarre reaction? Like, why was she so upset that I have MS? It doesn't bother her at all. She doesn't know me at all. Like, okay, my dad is upset that I'm using a rollator now. Okay, I get it, because you think like you're sad to see your daughter maybe struggle, but like, who's this random woman?
Mm.
So I try really hard to have compassion for people, but I think sometimes it's wild how emotionally invested people are in my disease.
So based on those experiences you shared, then what do you think needs to change in how we, as a society, view disability in public spaces?
I've often seen, wouldn't it be amazing if our world was created for people with disability and then everybody would be welcome in it?
Hmm.
And like, I know that can't happen overnight. I don't know. I think there's certain things I still shouldn't be fighting about. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
fighting that I can't get into a bathroom. Well, I
Hmm.
mean, I can get into the bathroom, thank goodness, but like, not everybody can because there's no push button. Why is there no push button, right? Like, I understand that not every place can do it financially right away, but why aren't we all working towards creating a community where everybody is welcome. I shouldn't have to stay at home. We saw that during COVID, right? People, "Oh, you have a autoimmune deficiency? Well, you shouldn't go out then, so I don't have to wear a mask. Or just wear a mask so I can also come out." Like, why does that hurt you so much to, like, want people to be included? But I'll tell you, having a son on the spectrum, disability in any form, intellectual or physical, makes people uncomfortable. And I don't know why, but it does. People are uncomfortable that I use a mobility device. I fell the other day in my driveway, and a neighbor drove by and saw me on the ground. I had help, so there was help with me. Pulled into his driveway, didn't come over and check on me, but then saw my dad the next morning and told my dad. 4 days later, the neighbor said, "Oh, I saw you lying in your driveway." Why wouldn't you have come to see how I am? Why wouldn't you have just yelled to my husband, "Is she okay? Do you guys need me to call the," like, I didn't need an ambulance, but, like, I don't understand. Like, what are we afraid of? I'll tell you another quick story, and this one's about my son. We were at a Swiss Chalet, and he reached over the booth and grabbed the plate of French fries on this elderly couple's table. He just reached over, grabbed this whole thing of French fries, and shoved it in his mouth. And it happened so fast. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." They were really, really nice about it. But we know that not everybody's going to be nice
Yeah.
about it, right? So I paid for their meal, actually. And then somebody watched the whole thing and paid for mine, which was so sweet. But the point is that doesn't always happen. I could tell you some stories where it wasn't a positive outcome, right? And I think that generally in society, like, imagine we just like accepted everyone for who they were, and there's not this word normal. I don't know.
Yeah.
It gets me really heated.
It's quite an in-depth topic of conversation. That's probably another episode just in that alone. So you've talked to us a little bit about, how you started becoming a bit more open on social media about your MS. So what sort of pushed you to start doing that?
So I think part of it is because I no longer felt like I was that fraud. So I felt like I had a platform to stand on and I could say, here are some things that people with MS go through. But I also, for my entire life since being diagnosed, I've gotten calls from people, from strangers, from friends of friends who have a diagnosis and they've reached out to me. So clearly, people have come to me for a long time for MS support. I also volunteer as a peer support worker with the MS Society. So I've worked for a long time with people who are newly being diagnosed,
Yeah.
or not so new. So I think sharing that, a lot of people have reached out to me and said, "This, please don't stop. This is really helpful." And I I appreciate that. I think that is the primary goal. The secondary goal is that I desperately would like to become an influencer, and I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. That is a true story. I wanna get free stuff and be like, "Look what I got sent, these new shoes, and this is how they've helped me." Because I think there's something to that too, and I really, really like to post about the realness. We know on social media, it's very, this is your life is perfect, your kids are perfect, right? That family portrait sort of thing, but you don't see what happens before or after. I'm gonna show you what happens before and after all the time. So if it's crying, I'll turn on my camera. When I fell the other day in my driveway, I yelled at my husband to go get my phone. And he was like, "I'm not going to get your phone." I'm like, "Videotape this." I'm like bleeding from my face. I'm like, "Videotape this." Because in my head, I'm like, this is a real thing. I just wiped out in my driveway, but he wouldn't do it. So I did a video after. But I think I just want to show the realness of what it's like to have MS, to have a family, to have a career, to have a husband who has a very high profile career. Like, I want to show you that life can be crazy, but you deal with it. And sometimes that means I cry, but sometimes that means I had the best day ever, and that's all okay.
I really appreciate you sharing that, Chrissy. So, are you a parent of a teenager with autism?
Yeah, so Darius is 16.
So, I want to shift gears here a little bit, Chrissy, and talk about the advocacy work that you do, which is essentially focused on bringing better support for those with intellectual disabilities. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, so my personal advocacy journey, really, I had my mom, but I would say it really began with Darius, and it has never ended and it won't ever end. So when I need something done, what are my choices? I have to make sure it happens, right? I have to make sure that I am advocating properly, not in a hostile, angry manner, but in a logical, educated, strong tone to get things done. And it's worked very well for me. And I do that for Darius, but I also do that for the families who can't. Our families aren't able to, whether maybe you have autism yourself, maybe you're terrified to go into a meeting with 14 people. Um, maybe English isn't your first language. Maybe you just don't know how to do it. So that's what I'm doing. And we adopted Darius at 4 years old. So since the adoption, like I would say, I've been on a higher level with my megaphone screaming, this is what we need to do, not just for Darius, but for all kids. And now he's a teenager. So now we're nearing that adulthood where everything is going to change for us. So my advocacy is changing quite a bit. But it's still there.
What changes do you think need to happen at sort of a national level when it comes to providing better support for these people with intellectual disabilities?
I mean, in a dream, it's happening federally, but I think again, it can happen in your province. I think many families are seeing the struggles with respite support, but also with the lack of the next step as they become an adult. So if you're choosing for whatever reason that a group home might be the next step for your adult, even older child or young adult, it's not like there's any available. Somebody told me the only way to get Darius into a group home is if my husband and I die. How do you feel about that as a parent? So we see a lot of people being put into psych wards while they wait for space. And that's wild to me that we don't have a plan in place. So that's where I would advocate and am advocating for change.
Very good. I believe I read a recent push that you're making for better first responder training around people with disabilities. How did that start?
Yeah, so last summer, Darius got out of our backyard and we didn't know. So he got fairly far from the house. I would say it was almost 20 minutes before I realized, I was like, wait a second, Darius isn't out back. Did he go inside to watch TV? And then, no, Darius isn't inside. I'm like, oh no. So we called 911 right away. And Darius was found at a local restaurant. He didn't know what he was doing. I should say he's mentally about 2 years old. So he was very confused. He crossed a very busy road, which is wild to me, and I'm so thankful nothing bad happened from that. When he arrived at the restaurant, somebody called 911. The response was, if it escalates, we'll come back. They didn't realize Darius was an autistic teenager. They thought Darius was a drug addict. Darius is a big black man. So the police were not called out. And then 20 minutes later, when we realized he was missing, we called and simultaneously somebody else called again from the restaurant. And they were able to put it together, realizing it was him. So by the time when the police had shown up, they surrounded him very gently just to keep him safe. They didn't touch him. They just made sure he had nowhere to go while they waited for my husband to zip over, which was a matter of minutes,
Yeah.
all of this. But what got me thinking was, what if I hadn't have called?
Yeah.
What if I hadn't have called and they had shown up?
Yeah.
What would have happened then? And would they have tased him? Because he's not going to respond to you.
Yep.
He has no shoes on. He's flapping wildly, I'm sure, or he's distant because he was in a space that he's not familiar with. So that got me thinking, and I had a meeting with our police chief and asked to do a presentation on autism and the behaviors, the not just the behaviors, but kind of the way to tell that, okay, maybe somebody is autistic versus a drug addict, because I'm sure you have all the ways in the world to de-escalate a situation, right?
Yep.
With drugs. So what about with autism? How do you know? How would you do it? So I paired up with a couple of friends who run a day program group home for adults with developmental disabilities called Adaptive Trails in Niagara region. And we were able to present to our local police on all of these different strategies and ways that they can help. But the coolest thing that has come out of this, beyond the training, is that there is a vulnerable persons registry that exists in different communities: Kitchener, Waterloo, Brantford, Innisfil, but we don't have it here. We have something else where you have to wear like a medical alert bracelet, but
Yep.
Darius won't. And there's a lot of people who won't. Plus, there's a fee that comes with that. There are many families who can't afford $60 a month to keep their loved ones safe, whether that's dementia, autism, whatever. This vulnerable persons registry they are now in the process of bringing it here. So I'm very pleased that we were able to make that move and support those, who are vulnerable.
I guess first of all, I'm really glad to hear that Darius was okay, and I'm really glad to hear that that day turned out okay for you. So I know we're just about out of time today, but before we go, what's the one thing that you wish every listener understood about what it means to be a caregiver, a person with disabilities, or both at the same time?
I felt like I was going to start crying for a minute because I don't even know. Like it's really easy for me to speak for young
Hmm.
caregivers. They want to be supported, identified. It's really easy for me to speak about people with developmental disabilities. They're human too. Just because Darius can't talk, he is the most loving, amazing human on the planet. He's my soulmate. But anyway, what can I say about people with MS? Everybody wants to be included, right? Everybody wants to feel inclusion. With MS specifically, cut your friends or family some slack when they say, you know what, today I can't. I know we had plans, but today I can't. Sometimes, I mean, MS can change in a matter of an hour, of a matter of a day, of a matter of a week, right? You can go from not walking to basically running the next
Hmm.
week because it's so different. So I think it's really understanding. It's really taking a step back and saying, not I don't expect you ever to put yourself in somebody else's shoes because sometimes that's really hard to do. But having that level of empathy and compassion that comes with somebody in your life who is a caregiver, who has a disability, who is both, um, I think just being able to say, "Hey, I'm here for you, and do you want me to come over with a tea? Do you wanna hang out? No, you need your space. Okay, that's fine." I think all of those things are okay, but it's really that compassion towards everybody.
Yeah. Well, look, that does wrap up our time for today. For anybody that wants to learn more about Young Caregivers Association or your work in advocacy, or just someone who wants to watch your content around MS, where can they find you?
So for young caregivers, head to our website, youngcaregivers.ca. There's an information request. You can fill it out. It actually all comes to me. So if you're like, oh, I want to have a chat about this, please reach out to me. Or if you know somebody, if you're interested in my own content, you can follow me on Instagram at Fresh Princess Chris. And I'm documenting my health journey as things get a little worse for me because I think it's important for people to see and understand and know. And I've got snippets of Darius in there too. And so yeah,
Excellent.
I think there's a couple different ways you can DM me or again email me through the website.
Very good. Well, we'll make sure we get all that info in the show notes, and we'll make sure we put the links for anyone that wants to reach out. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was Chrissy Sadowski, and what a great conversation. I'm really impressed with how she tends to turn a bad situation into a great policy. I keep thinking about something that she said about her son Darius. She was told that the only way that they could get her son Darius into a group home was if her husband and her passed away. That's the unfortunate reality that a lot of families are in, and it won't get better unless we take a page from Chrissy's book and advocate for a better world. Everything that Chrissy mentioned is in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating from whichever platform you're listening from. And follow the Accessible Future podcast from Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Simon Jones, and I'll see you on the next episode.